Okay, the recorder is on. So the goal here is to update the timestamp in Cloud Firestore. And if we go to our console in Firestore, you probably only have one project open, or you may have two because maybe you've already started your assignment. Hopefully you have. So we're going to open up our restaurant rater application we've been building. You can see the amount of reads and writes to our database. And if I click on our Firestore database, so remember there's Firebase, which is the full, getting a weird greeny shadow going on here. There's Firebase, which is a whole architecture of things. So it's our authentication, it's our database. There's a lot of other hosting and machine learning functions that we will not touch in this course. But Firebase is a big ecosystem. And our database here, when we click on Firestore database, we can see our collections. So we have two collections, one for restaurants and one for comments. But across the top, we also have things like data. We can click on rules, indexes, and usage, right? So, we can see things about how our application is being used over time. But let's click on the rules. So here in the rules, we can see we allow people to read and write to our database if the timestamp, in my case, is before Saturday, right? So what would happen is if we don't change this, when I start working on this on Sunday, all of a sudden my database queries and writes are all going to just start breaking, and I'm going to be like, what happened? I didn't change anything. Well, this changed, time changed. Now you can go in and just change it, change the date, so it would prolong how long it would allow anyone to read and write to it. But it's stronger to put a proper rule in here. So I think, so what we're going to do is we're going to switch to this. We're going to allow read and write if request.auth.uid is not null. Okay, so in here, I'm going to say request.auth.uid is not equal to null. Okay, so what that will do is we'll force anyone that's reading and writing to this database to be an authenticated user. And we have not set up authentication yet. So if we actually go to use our app right now, it'll probably break. So let's save those changes. Let's publish it and see what happens. Okay. It says it can take up to a minute to propagate. And while that's building, I'll just go back here in case I was too fast. Whoops. So there's the new rule. And so you see what happened here? My list of restaurants is now blank. So what happened was our application tried to read from Cloud Firestore, but was denied because we didn't have an authenticated user. So we've made this no longer time sensitive, and now we need to add the ability to actually have an authenticated user experience. If we go back into Android Studio, I imagine you can see here when I go to Logcat that what we got was a permission was denied. So we weren't allowed to read and write to our database because we changed that authentication rule. So I'm going to actually open up last week's slides because I had hoped to do this in week 7, so before reading week. So let me just open those up. Last week we spent a lot of time working on our view models and talking through the adapter. So with Firebase Auth, it's actually quite nice. They've scaffolded out and pre-built a lot of tools for us already. What we need to do is actually really just use those tools. So let's go into our console, Cloud Firestore, or sorry, Firebase console. Okay, so if you're there, under Project Overview, we have Authentication. Okay, so I'm in Firebase. I clicked on Authentication, and there's this Getting Started button. So I'm just going to click it. And in here, you can see all the different ways that authentication can be configured. So I selected email, password. Let's go back here. So native providers, email and password. I'm going to say enable. I'm not going to enable this passwordless sign-in, but you could. It'll save you some time when you're troubleshooting. I'll hit save. So that gives me email as a way to log in. So someone supplies me their username, their email address, and they select a password, and then they can be added. And I'm going to click on Add New Provider, and we're going to add Google as well. Now the thing with Google, when you enable it, is you need to have a support email. So if something breaks, I mean, again, we're doing this for educational purposes, so it's not really a big risk that you're going to get a lot of emails, but they force you to put this in. So there's a little drop down. It's whatever you've registered your Firebase console under. So hit save. And you can see it says here, configure the SHA-1 certificate and download Google services.json in project settings. So what that SHA-1 certificate is it's the handshake, right, between this service, our Firebase authentication service, and our application. So I'm just doing email and Google. You can do others if you want, but I'm going to just show you how to do these two. So it said to configure the SHA-1. So if I go into Project Overview and Settings, Project Settings, and under General, if I scroll to the bottom, we can see here's our application, and it says SHA Certificate Fingerprints, Add Fingerprint. So if I've lost anyone, please let me know in the chat. I'm trying to make sure I'm doing it at a good pace. Is everyone able to get to here? Yes, I am recording the lecture. Okay, so now this SHA fingerprint actually comes from our project. So we need to go into Android Studio to get it. And up on the right-hand side, where it says Gradle, you can see my mouse cursor is going up on the right-hand side. There's Gradle. When I open this, there's an item here called Tasks. Do you have tasks showing? No. Okay. So one of the things that they've done with Android Studio is it NBO. That's I'm going to guess that's a typo, or it's an acronym I don't know. So the tasks, it adds time to the build process. So by default, they've disabled it. So if you want to enable it, you go to, and I think I put a little note in my slides for this. Yes, I found this on one of the Stack Overflows. So to enable it, go into Settings, Experimental, and do not build Gradle task lists. So go into Settings. So File, Settings, and then under Experimental, this bit here where it says do not build task lists during Gradle sync, you need to disable that. So you got to remove the checkbox. There's a little bubble that says task not built. You can click that little bubble and I get there too. Oh, okay, so it's taking you to the same spot in settings? Yes, okay. So what you need to do is disable this, then do apply and okay. And that still won't get the task list built because you have to rebuild the Gradle. So the way I was doing it, and I feel like there's a better way, but the way that I was doing it was under my project, under the Gradle scripts, what I did was I went down to my build features and I changed view binding to false, and then I changed it back to true. Whoops. I said false and then sync, and then I changed it back to true. And that just forced the Gradle to run. I'm sure there's a command that would do that. Okay, thanks, Eric. I'm going to go there next. So I'll resync that. So Eric in the chat said there's a little elephant next to the AVD manager and it builds the scripts as well. So if I go to Tools, AVD manager, mine maybe has a slightly different layout. But that's okay. One way or the other is fine. So you can see it's still syncing up here next to the Git ribbon on the top action bar. Oh, this one. There you go. Thank you. So Eric pointed this out. This little elephant here, the elephant in the room, if you click on that, it's going to handle your sync as well. So you don't have to do my goofy approach to resync it. Thanks for that. I had not noticed that before. Okay. So when it's done, you should now be able to see this tasks window show up. I guess there's a little Gradle elephant there as well. And inside of here is something called the signing report. And if you double click on it, it runs your signing report. And in here, you'll see your SHA-1 fingerprint. So I'm just going to copy that. So I've selected it. I'm going to do Control-C. And then I'm going to go take this back to my Firebase console and put it in there. is my Firebase console. Where my fingerprint is, I Control V to paste it. It recognizes it as SHA-1, and I say save. So what that does is when someone registers with Google, that SHA-1 fingerprint will be used to authenticate the user. Which one was it? The SHA-1. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Android Studio. So the way that I got to here was I clicked on Gradle in the upper right, and then under Tasks, under Android, there's a signing report. And if you double click it, it will run. And the signing report comes out at the bottom. And you can see there's several different fingerprints. I chose the SHA-1. They're all the same. So this one's the same as the one below. So it doesn't really matter which one you grab. But it's SHA-1 that you need. And then I took that into my Firebase console. And under Settings, Project Structure, if you scroll down under General, you can add the fingerprint. If you don't add it, it will look like everything works, but when you go to register with Google, it'll just say like this dreaded like error code 10. It doesn't really give you much information. It's just like, it just won't work. All right. So that's what we need to do on the Firebase side. So now these things are connected. And what we need to do on the Android Studio side is create an activity to which we can use all of these services. And to do that, we're going to need to update our Gradle to include some more libraries. So I'm going to go to the slides here. And the next one we have here, these are the week 7 slides. This is what I was hoping to get to before reading week. We have these dependencies. So I'm going to just copy those. Let me just put them into some kind of editor so they... I'm going to grab them from my other file because this is a pain to edit these. 1 second. So the problem when you use the Microsoft Word items, they look pretty, but they can be problematic. So let's grab from here. And I'm going to paste it into the chat for everybody. And we're going to go under Android, Gradle scripts, module level Gradle. And I'm going to go down to where we have all these dependencies, right? So last time we had our recycler view dependencies. And I'm just going to paste the same items that I had in the chat. So that's these lines here I put in the chat, and I'll say sync now. Okay, have I lost anyone, or is everyone still with me? All right, Lindsay. I haven't noticed much banter with Eric today. He's here, though. He's here. Hopefully he's keeping up with you. He's only typing with one hand. He has a baby in the other. Okay. So that gives us our dependencies. And then there's a lot of pre-built code out there for us So I'm actually going to go to they've done a great job documenting this, and it does change over time. So I'm going to go right from the website. And what you can see on this website is they actually give you, a step-by-step process to get a sign-in activity pre-built. It's almost no code you have to write. You just have to copy and paste. So first they talk about the dependencies. And we're not doing Facebook, so I'm going to skip that. And then we need a sign-in activity. So in our application, I'm going to right-click, new activity, empty activity, and I'm going to call it the sign-in activity. Everything else is Kotlin, generate a layout file, so that part's all done for us. So hit finish. I'll add that to GitHub. So this looks like what we're used to seeing, right? There's an onCreate method, and that's about all that's pre-built into our sign-in activities. So now all we have to do is follow the prescribed sign-in. And I'm going to do one other thing, is I'm going to make this my first screen. So who remembers, let's see if Eric can beat Lindsay. What file do we have to modify to change to the first, which activity is first? Miles and Eric, all right. Yes, it's the manifest. So I just added the sign-in activity. And I'm not sure, I have to look it up. I noticed this happened to me in my prep, that exported equals false came up when I did sign-in activity. But typically it's true, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if they've changed something with the latest Android. I upgraded my Android the other day, so I don't know. So I'm just going to change that to be true, because it seems to complain if it's false. And all I'm going to do is change my intent filter. I'm going to cut it and paste it up here under the sign-in activity. So now the first activity that we'll get to is the sign-in activity, which is what we want. We want users to sign in and then use our app. So everyone okay with how I modified the manifest? Any questions?
I just want to make sure we have to sync the Gradle, right, before we go any further.
You want to see what I did with the Gradle? I added these.
Sync it, right?
You have to sync it each time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't sync it, these changes won't take effect. So this Firebase BOM, B-O-M, it stands for Bill of Materials. And they've actually got a lot of elements inside of that. And the nice thing is they maintain all the dependencies for you inside that BOM. So it makes your life really easy to build this authentication piece. All right, so our manifest is updated. Our build.gradle is updated. The next thing we need to do is our sign-in activity Kotlin file. So I'm going to go to that website, and I'll paste that in the group chat as well if you want to just copy and paste right out of there. And I've scrolled down to where it says sign in. So we need to have this method called sign in launcher. It'll actually give us a little error at first, but it'll go away once we put some other content in. So make sure you've got the Kotlin piece selected. You can just copy the code snippet. And I'm going to paste it down here. And I'm going to have to import my libraries. So Alt-Enter, do my import. This sign-in result, don't worry about it yet. As we add more code, this will become populated. So go back to their process. It says to kick off the Firebase UI, sign-in flow, create a sign-in intent. So again, I just have to copy this section of code. And I'm going to, this one, we have to put inside of the onCreate method. So this is my onCreate method. I'm going to paste it in here. Alt-Enter to import the libraries. And then the last thing we need, if we scroll down a little bit further, when the sign-in flow is complete, you'll receive a on-sign-in result, which is this little method here. So we're going to copy that. And paste it down here. Do our imports. So this is all the code we need. So when we do the onCreate, we're going to use the email utility. I'm not going to set up the phone one or these other ones. So we're just going to do email and Google. And then it will automatically build all of our UI for us. We actually don't need to do anything. Now you can also custom create your own UI if you want, but this is going to do all the heavy lifting for us. So it's up to you whether you want to change from what we're doing. So then the big thing here is most of this is just all boilerplate. And we need to decide what do we want to do when we have a result. So if the result is okay, we now have a user. So what we can do is we can create an intent. So I'm going to say intent, val intent. And we'll go to the grid recycler activity. And I'm going to pass along the user. Okay, so if the user successfully authenticates, then we're going to navigate to our grid recycler view, and we're going to pass in the actual user object. So now we have, the user's ID and everything. And start activity, of course, just launches the intent, and we would migrate to the screen. Now, if we get to else, so if the result code was not an okay, then what do we want to do? Well, in this case, I think we're going to say make a toast, or make text, sign in failed, and we'll just navigate back to the sign in activity. Okay, so successful login, we're going to go to our grid recycler activity. Non-successful, we just go back to the sign-in page. And now it's time to hit the play button. I think I've got the wrong thing showing here. Try that again. I think I was seeing my prep work, not my today's work. This gets me every time. And you may be experiencing the same thing. You're hitting play, you're hitting play, you're hitting play, nothing's happening. When we ran the signing report, that was the last task that we ran. So up here, when I'm hitting the play button, you see how I'm actually running the signing report every time I hit the green button? I'm not actually running my app. So I'm going to go down to app and hit play. It's funny, that gets me every single time. It's building. Yeah, it's weird, right? It's a subtle error. And it's not even an error. That's the problem. It just doesn't run. All right. So what you should see is something that comes up, and it's going to have our logo across the top, and then we've got sign in with email or sign in with Google. So hopefully you're seeing something like this coming up. And I'm going to choose sign in with email to start. So sign in with email. And it's going to, of course, ask me for my email. So I'm going to do test@test.com. On next. What's my first and last name? I don't know, the testy tester. And a password. So I'm going to say test123. For testing, I really encourage you to keep it simple. And then it comes in to our list of restaurants. I'm now an authenticated user, so I see the restaurants come up. And as Eric says, huzzah! Isn't that wonderful? It's really not a lot of code that we had to write. We copy and pasted from a couple sources, and we had a few little steps, but that gave us authenticated. An authenticated user, it's like that. Let's go back into, yeah, it's super easy. Let's go back into Firebase console now. And if I go to authentication, I can actually see now that there's a user in here, right? So when we first came to authentication, we wouldn't have seen any users. Test@test, and you can see its provider is just regular email. When it was created, user ID. Now, you can copy the UID. You can reset their password and delete the account, but you can't get a ton of information out of it. I believe you can get their username, like first and last name, and their email. That's about it from the user. That's all that's stored in Firebase's authentication tool. You could then keep other information, I believe in Firestore, that you would just link up with the user ID. But there you have it. Easy peasy. We have now got an authenticated user. And it's 12:45, so that's probably a great spot to take a quick break. So before we take that quick break, I'm going to, yes, so in the group chat, the question was, is there a way to connect a user to a restaurant? And yes, there is. We would have to change, the definition of what a restaurant is. It might be better to associate a person with a comment, but yes, we can make the connections. All right, so that's rewarding as an instructor that I got it cool, right? I'm actually doing something interesting. Did we sign in or sign up? Yes. We did both. I'll show you what happens when we go to sign in. So this time we signed up. First time in, you're signing up. Subsequent times we're going to sign in. But I was going to show you before the break. I'm in the process of building a quiz. So this week's learning, we're learning about authentication, which we just did, and deployment. And in this week, we got our learning objectives, which is to do authentication. And then our goal today is to actually get to the point where we can deploy an app. And on our to-do list, I have a little quiz that I'm in the process of building. And my apologies, I wanted to have it done. I ran into some technical hurdles, but that will be coming soon, hopefully before the end of today, and I'll send a little announcement that it's ready to go. And of course, you need to keep working on assignment 2 as we go. And then under the class slides and images, we're going to use these class slides and images today to do our deployment. And what I'll need for you to do as part of the deployment is have a tablet available in your AVD manager. So it's good to get that downloading now, because a lot of these things take they're like almost a gig big. So if you go to Tools, AVD Manager, and down here I want you to create a virtual device. You already have a phone most likely, but also pick a tablet, because we're going to do some screenshots with tablets. They want either a 7-inch one or a 10-inch one, so you can pick one of these. It doesn't really matter which. And then if you haven't already downloaded the software, I'm going to use Pi, but you can use any of these. I'll just hit finish. If you haven't downloaded one previously, there's several gigs usually. Yeah, so I would start that now. Okay. So British is going to talk about Diwali. And Eric was asking about assignment 1B. Yeah, 1B I thought was a while ago. So I'm pretty sure I marked 1B already. Yeah, that was due a while ago. Two is coming up, which is to get sort of that first view of your application working. And I don't want to go too much longer because I want to give British some time. We can talk about the assignments though when we come back. 2, it's not 2B, it's just 2. Yeah, it's due soon. So assignment 2, Wednesday, November 10th. So next week. That one's a bigger one. The other ones have been really small. This one's actually pretty meaty. So Ritesh, if you would like to share your screen, or just if you wanted to talk to us, I don't know if you had any graphics you wanted to show or not, but love to hear about some of the Diwali experiences growing up.
I don't have any graphics on me, but I might pull a picture of my house,
Sure.
which we have decorated over here. But Diwali, as most of the article title says, it's the festival of lights. It is festival of light, and it is festival we celebrate to win against the evil. There was a whole story behind it, the religious story as well. I'm not gonna go into that, but basically Diwali is not just celebrated one day, but it is like a celebration for 5 days actually. It started 2 days ago.
Okay.
Which is called Dhanteras, then it is Kali Chaudas, then today is Diwali, then tomorrow is New Year, and then there is Bhai Dooj. So all the 5 days have different meanings for it, and we celebrate all of them. Day one, we praise money. So there is a goddess for money. We praise them and wish for more money and prosperity every year. The day 2 is celebrated for strength. The day 3 is Diwali, which is a celebration for light. The 4th day is New Year's. So our calendar, the authentic, I don't know how to say, but the Gujarati calendar starts. So it should end over here.
Yeah.
And then the 5th day is celebrated for brothers and sisters. So usually sisters go to brother's house and they eat, they celebrate, and that's it.
Nice.
I've also decorated my house a kind of bit. I'll show a picture of it. Hope everyone can see it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's colorful. It's like lighting.
Yeah.
It looks like Christmas, but it's what we have done for our house.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Today we all like at the college as well. So our student association is getting together, and we are having a Diwali feast in TLC. There was like a lot of announcement of it as well.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, all of my friends are coming to my house, and we are having like dinner together, and then we're gonna bust some crackers. So if you are around here and you hear some noises of busting crackers, that's us.
When you say busting crackers, are those like little fireworks, or are you talking like food?
So we bought like $500 worth of fireworks.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's like different type of fireworks. Some of them are like ground, some of them go up in the air and they do some lightning shows and all. So
$500. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
We are a lot of people together, so
okay.
Yeah.
We don't get like much when it comes to our pocket. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's so good.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I mean, it's so cool to learn about some of the other traditions out there. It's fantastic.
Yeah, if everyone was in the class, some of my friends know me that I'm so fond of treating everyone with food. So if everything was in person, I would have like bought sweets for everyone.
That's something that I miss. It's like having some of those great treats. I guess it was the last semester before COVID hit. I had so many different people from around I had one gentleman brought in like Turkish coffee for me and stuff, and it was so flavorful, so good, and so many good flavors around the world. So, well, hopefully soon we can meet in person, and you can still give me some sweets.
For sure.
All right. Well, let's take our break here, and I've got 12:54 on my clock. So why don't we do? Would 15 minutes work for everyone? Come back at like 1:10? And yes, I will push to GitHub.